What is the missing block in building institutes of excellence? India needs to bring multiple higher education regulators under one harmonizing roof, HECI. The name of the author is Mamidala Jagadesh Kumar, who is chairman of UGC. There are all kinds of regulators, from banking to energy to telecommunications. Education is no oddity. In India, there are numerous higher education regulators. University Grants Commission (UGC) is the largest regulator, whose policies impact a significant share of the higher education student population. There are enormous societal expectations from the education regulators in India due to the scale and complexity of challenges that need to be addressed in higher education. These include providing learning outcomes based education and individualized learning on a mass scale. With the National Educational Policy 2020 being executed nationwide, the need to achieve regulatory excellence has become even more important to achieve the above objectives. Every country wants to build higher education institutes of excellence by investing in academic and research excellence. The logic is straightforward. If a country aims at becoming self reliant, it needs a knowledgeable and skilled workforce, which only institutions of excellence can prepare. Such institutions should focus on delivering affordable quality education relevant to local and national needs. They also must have governance structures that stimulate research excellence, the freedom to pursue different disciplines, encouragement to question the status quo, and an ecosystem that nurtures diversity. Unfortunately, multiple agencies seek to regulate institutes of higher education in India. However, building institutes of excellence is impossible if numerous regulators work at cross purposes, in silos, with no consultative mechanisms but overlapping functions. This operational disconnect among different regulators is a major challenge. Due to the absence of consultation and coordination among various regulators, educational institutes cannot promote holistic and multidisciplinary education to realize better learning outcomes and research output, a requirement for preparing well rounded learners with 21st century skills and diverse experiences that enhance their employability. Therefore, a strong case exists for bringing together multiple regulators under one roof as envisaged in NEP 2020. That roof is called the Higher Education Commission of India, HECI. There will be four verticals in HECI: a regulatory vertical, an accreditation vertical, a funding vertical, and a standard setting vertical. Each of them will function in an autonomous mode but in a coordinated manner. All degree awarding institutions are expected to be guided by HECI by holistically harmonizing multiple higher education disciplines, irrespective of which council or regulator managed them earlier. For example, the recent unveiling of a national credit framework is a major initiative in harmonizing school education, higher education, and skill or vocational education. The use of the academic bank of credits by all educational institutions will provide increased seamless mobility for students to move from one institution to another or migrate from one discipline to another. Given the rapid changes India's higher education will undergo, HECI, which will be established through an Act of Parliament, must set its priorities right and bring out regulations based on evidence based inputs. HECI should refrain from bringing out regulators in areas requiring no regulation. As a regulator, it should assess how the regulations will impact the functioning of higher education institutes and whether the change the regulations aim to obtain is optimal. Input from the stakeholders: students, faculty members, non teaching staff, institutional heads, industry, and the general public can be beneficial when formulating the regulations. A regulator should therefore have an open mind to suggestions and feedback and formulate the regulations transparently, involving participatory procedures. While regulation of higher education is vital and is for the public good, a regulator should practice regulatory self restraint and intervene only when there is evidence for intervention. It should not succumb to the temptation of micromanaging the affairs of higher education institutes just because the law gives it the authority. This means that the regulator should foresee the expected role a regulation will play in improving the quality of education and also the constraints it could bring. Therefore, The regulatory authority in one jurisdiction should give due consideration to regulations brought about by another regulatory authority while preparing its regulations. We need to create an interconnected web of regulatory functions. Interactions between players in the wider regulatory network, sharing of regulations and their impact, and more importantly, working together to co create regulations will go a long way in making the functioning of educational institutions more oiled. There is much to learn from each other's regulatory experiences. For instance, how regulatory compliance can be made more uncomplicated using digital technology during crises such as the COVID pandemic. These key aspects are critical for advancing our understanding of the need for HECI. By harnessing the potential of collaborative efforts, HECI can usher in a contemporary, streamlined regulatory approach involving all relevant regulatory bodies and stakeholders. As a unified and harmonized regulator, HECI can play a transformative role in making India's higher education an abundant ground for inventive ideas, reinforcing all of India's initiative to build institutes of excellence.